We haven't used anything.
What we need now is the tools. So far, we must put this out. If all we've spent up to now is £16 on a dartboard, we've had a piece of wood cut down the shed and planed the sides and screwed it to the floor. We've spent £16. All we need is the tools to throw at it. Very cheap game.
Fine, let's go over and look at something.
OK.
OK then, John, fine. I need a set of darts, and I see that you brought along quite a wide variety of darts here to illustrate. But quite frankly, John, some of them seem quite ancient.
Well, they are. If I brought every set of darts that you could actually buy today, we'd need a table 100 feet long. There's thousands of them. I mean, literally thousands. What I've tried to do is to bring, or to show you without complicating it, the differences. The difference from the big dart to the small dart, the long dart, to the very short dart. And I think we should set off by saying that a dart now has a fixed description. A dart can be no longer than 12 inches, and it should weigh no more than 50 grams. So that gives you a wide scope to choose from. You can imagine if you put all the many different variations into that, you could come up with almost 1 million different types of dart to throw. If we take a fine look at them, we go back to this particular dart here, which is the one that, very similar to what Tom Barrett used to win the News of the World twice, 2 years in succession. Go back to the mat again. He did throw from a little bit farther back. So the heavier dart does carry through the air a little bit better than a lighter dart. But this is what Tom had to use. I mean, that's quite a big-looking dart, made of brass with a fixed point. He didn't use that stem. That is a more modern stem, and he would probably use something like that, which is just a piece of cane that would fit into there, shaped down to whatever shape he wanted, and then the flight put in the end. Probably a flight similar to this one, but made out of paper. You know, that would actually fit into the end. There's a groove cut in there, and this little band would come down here and then go back up and tighten up to fasten the flight in. Very, very, not technical, but if you think about it, it's a long, long way away from a lot of the darts we see today. We've got a dart here which is used by Tony Brown onto a very, very slim dart, very, very slim, as you can see. The idea of that compared to this is quite easy to see. You can almost get two of that into the one barrel of the brass one. Yeah. So without being too technical, that is made of brass, this is made of a tungsten alloy. The results are very, very major. One is that this doesn't weigh this thin one. So we've got a tungsten that is 2.5 times the density of brass, which gives us a smaller, thinner barrel. If you're good enough, you could get 9 of those in the 2020.
Could you?
You'd have to be very good to get 3 of those in, which Tommy Barrett must have been an exceptionally good player because he used to do it regularly. It makes us just realise how good the players of yesterday were compared to the players of today.
And, of course, from the longer distance.
From a longer distance as well, and probably without as many nicer surroundings and lights and things like that. But to the dart itself, this has just an ordinary black polyester stemming with a self-adhesive flight which fits into the top. The type of flight you purchase, whether it be a pear-shaped flight like that or what we call a standard flight like that, depends on the individual. If the dart, when it goes through the air, tends to turn, it's usually because the flight is too small and you put a bigger one in. If it holds back in the air, you may shorten the stem and put a pear-shaped flight in. The stems come in many variations from long, medium and short. The darts likewise come in long, medium and short again. And they also come in different point lengths. The Americans now have a strong feeling that the longer the point, the farther away the dart stands out of the dartboard, so it misses the barrel of this dart when it goes in. Gives you more room. I personally don't quite believe that theory, because the distance from the face of the board to the glue, which we spoke about earlier, shouldn't be more than that point. The point shouldn't be longer, or you're going to go right in, hit the glue and bounce the dart back out. So I think the point should be just slightly smaller than from the face of the board to the actual glue which holds the bristle in. That way the dart will stay into the bristle. Good thing to remember about a dart like this is new, shiny. the point. It shouldn't be exactly a point. If it is, it'll hit the wire and stick in the wire. If it's chisel-edged, we've got a typical example with my own dart. That is a chisel edge. It's almost round. But that'll not hit the wire, flush on, stick in it, and then bounce on the floor. It will sometimes, because that's the price we pay for being a little bit too good.
Yes, indeed. A little bit too accurate.
That's right. What happens is with these that it tends to move over the wire as it goes into the board. So there's many things, but basically about darts, what I'm trying to illustrate to you in this is that you can buy from the old Tommy Barrett style dart to the modern day John Lowe dart, which looks like it should only be half the price of that. And then we've got the ones that Jim Pike, famous legend of darts, would throw these, the Schofield, which would have this in again and not that plastic stem as we see here. This is a collection that probably goes back 50, 60 years that I've collected from various people, some that have sent to me in the post and said, would you like them, because they've been handed down, some of them, for a couple of generations. We can look at a particular set here, which those sections on there, believe it or not, were threatening bit shaped, and because the other darts followed through and hit them, it's knocked them off.
And gradually eroded, yeah.
That, again, is a thing to look for when you buy a set of darts. It's not really practical to buy one with ridges on, because your point again can hit that ridge, deflect the dart, and it falls on the floor without even sticking in the board. So I would say, to buy one, what do we do? Do we look for a thin one like the Tony Brown? Do we look for also a thin one, but it's got a thicker barrel? This one would be more sensible to an ordinary beginner with 24-gram dart, which is middle of the range. If we take from, let's say, the 16-gram to the 40-gram, the 24-gram is somewhere that you could start with and work up or down a gram or two either side. Don't expect to buy it and be brilliant with it straight away. You may have got the wrong one. You may want one slightly lighter, slightly heavier. You know, it's very important that you get the right tools. And I know tungsten darts are a lot of money. They can cost up to £25. But once you've got the right set, then you can stick to that set practically for 20, 30 years. Have new points in as they wear down. You have to change the flights and stems because they wear away, they break. But they're very inexpensive. A set of flights, 30p, and a set of stems, 30. So if you have to renew them every 2 weeks, it's 60p. A golf ball can cost you upwards of £1, and you can lose that with one hit. So we're in the right direction at around 24 gram for a beginner. And my own particular dart, you'll notice, is very much shorter in the barrel than that one. Now, both these darts are made by Unicorn, a very, very old established firm who sponsor me. They're my sponsor in darts. And I was very fortunate to go along to them and say, can I take a little bit off? Can I add a bit on? And so for 2 years, we lengthened the dart, we shortened it. I kept saying they're wrong again. Eventually, I finished up with an house full of darts, which I didn't sell. I kept, and they're still there as a witness to the fact I keep moving up and down. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm very lucky. You can't do that. You can't walk into a shop and say to the shopkeeper, take me a little bit off, put me a little bit on. So you have to use a shop that should have a dartboard on the wall that you can practice on and hopefully get the right weight, the weight what suits you. You'll notice mine is very, very, at least half an inch shorter than a standard 2 1/8 inch barrel dart. The reason for that is that, I can explain this later when we get round to grip. It's all to do with grip. The reason I have it smaller is that when I hold it, there's only enough of it to hold. Again, I will get back to that. This is a dart being a torpedo-shaped dart that you throw up and it always comes down. Now, that might sound silly because any weight that goes up always comes down. That's not the fact. The long, slim dart like this will go up, but it'll bend through the air sometimes and move way off target. This thrown in an arc, the one that I throw, thrown in up, will go in an arc. So anyone, whether it's a lady, whether it's a young child or anybody, can get good results from it. There may not be treble 20s and bullseyes and double sixes and things like that straight away, but it gives them something to work from. It is a good dart for a beginner, and so is this. This is the middle of the range, and if you can throw a slim dart, it's all to your advantage because you'll get more in the treble. That is the basics, what we're all aiming at.
Now, you said, John, just to pick you up on one point, you said you were fortunate enough, and obviously in a position, to be able to go and virtually design your dart.
That's right.
Now,
yes.
you didn't suddenly decide on a design. Your theory about what you wanted in a dart obviously came after very much trial and error, I would have thought.
Darts is all trial and error. Every little bit through it. If you can make it work the first time, you have eliminated the error. It's a trial that's been successful. So you carry on doing that right. But you can't do that. It's like practically every single sport that you play. It's trial and error to start with. Then once you've found a set pattern that you can work to, you try and improve on that pattern, get it better and better. You will reach a standard where you won't get any better. That's possible. So that's the level of the game you're always going to reach. You're never going to get. If it's destined that you've got all the practice time in the world but not the ability, then you'll probably not get to be world champion. But by having the right set of tools, as I call it, it can help to improve your game. And there's many sort of exciting things about a set of darts that you can look at. They're not just a piece of metal with a point, with a stem, and with a flight. I will illustrate what I mean to you with the different many stems we've got here on the table, the different many flights.
I was in fact going to say, John, that you mentioned the dart is used by, what, 50 years old? Did you
That's
say?
right, that's a Jim Pike.
Now this is a smooth barrel, and yet this is the only example you've brought along with a smooth barrel. How important are is it the grooves or the rings, the design of the barrel? How important is it purely just for grip, or does it affect the balance, or
Yes, it does. You find with a brass dart, this is made of brass. Sometimes they're coated, they're copper with a brass coating, but that's really immaterial. It still looks like brass. You notice that the point is actually soldered in on this dart. It's a square piece of brass, but the point's been inserted and then soldered, put right down to form the lip, which would go off the top of a flight, like so, instead of just being a square and hit it and fall onto the floor. Brass, you will find that if your fingers are wet or slightly tacky, it forms an adhesion anyway. So they're always okay to grip. Brass darts you can easily grip. With tungsten, they tend to go shiny. The alloy itself tends to shine off as you hold it. So have the grooves in if you want to grip. I have them because that grips on my thumb quite well. You just feel yourself and you'll realise what I mean.
Yes.
It's got a very good grip. Now, the thing that a lot of players say to me is, well, those grooves are very deep. And they complain because when they come through into the board, they hit the flight and break the flight. But I say to them, well, that's the price you have to pay. That's the little bit, a few pence for a new set of flights. If you want to eliminate the groove and have a smooth dart, you may finish up having to put chalk on your fingers to make it more adhesive. Or as I do, I always lick my fingers before I play. Sounds like a dirty habit, I know, but I do it anyway.
And there is a reason, of course, for doing it. It's not habit.
No, it's not an habit at all, and it's something what, if you look very closely at darts, and I have, obviously, over the recent years on TV, you'll see many more players copying that, just wetting the fingers, because chalk's messy. And there is a rule now in darts that if you chalk the barrel and the chalk goes into the grooves, the dart hits the board, the chalk all comes off all over the board, and you are then breaking the rules of darts. You're obscuring the shot for the next player to throw. So chalk is now becoming less and less frequent. Well, we've done a little bit on the dart side. As I've said, there's many combinations you can choose. You, as I would suggest, someone walking into a shop should look at the darts very carefully. Don't just go for Eric Bristow's darts because he's won the world title. Don't buy Keith Della's because he's won it, and don't buy a John Lowe dart if you can't hold it. Get a dart what's middle of the range, something like that. Something what you can reduce the stem, reduce the point, put a bigger stem in, bigger shaft, a bigger flight, smaller flight, many combinations. Don't just buy the darts, buy the flights to go with it and work on it. Yeah.
Now, John, you've mentioned the approximate cost of the important part, because it seems to me that the modern day dart comes in in 4 separate parts. All can be replaced.
That's right.
But the tungsten centre, the tungsten shaft, I believe as you call it, that is the important part of the dart. I know the other 3 aspects go up to make the dart, but the important choice would be on either the length or the density or the...
The importance placed on tungsten may be sometimes overrated. I say this because If people can win events with brass darts and they throw well and they go through the air well, what is the need to pay 10 times that amount for a set of tungsten? I'm not suggesting that somebody's parents goes out and buys a young child of 6-year-old a set of £20 tungsten darts. He can quite easily practice with a £2.50 set of brass darts. If he then wants to progress to tungsten, then the change is made. It does obviously help if you can buy the right set from the beginning, because like we've said all along, get a good board, the right height, the right throw, set off right. But £20 is a lot of money to expect parents to pay for youngsters that they may want to not play after 6 months. So there's just as much enjoyment getting a set of brass darts. They work equally as well, but as you can see by the size, they hide the treble. And that's the most important part of the game, getting the darts into the treble, as many as we can.
Obviously, from our future champion point of view, you know, it would be recommended. But what is the kind of... We've talked about the groove now, John, but they seem, and to a total layman, they seem to vary such a lot in weight. Is that according to size, or the size of the actual dart? Would that determine the weight? Would this be on a longer barrel? Would that automatically weigh less or more than your own darts which are shorter?
Yes, the weight of a dart varies again. It gets very technical, and it's not something a beginner really wants to know. Provided he's got a set of darts that says on the box, like Unicorn, for instance, put on here 24.7 gram. That is guaranteed to minus or plus 1% of a gram in all the 3 barrows. That is a very good guarantee. But, I mean, we take that as face value, and we take it out of the shop and take it out and we throw it, and we say, well, I've got a 24-gram dart. A gram, by the way, is a Kleenex tissue. So anyone who thinks a gram is a very heavy weight, it's a Kleenex tissue. So if we sharpen it 30 or 40 times, we may have lost that gram in one dart, especially if we don't sharpen the other 2. So weights, again, can be made, as it says on here, a T80. So that's 80% nickel to 20% alloy, or 20% nickel and 80% tungsten, the mixture. We can buy the exact same dart with more tungsten in, more nickel mixed in as well, and we get a different weight dart in exactly the same shape. So weights can come in different sizes, but in also different kinds of material that's used to make the dart up. One thing I would like to show to you, and it's a little prized possession, what's been sent to me from someone very, very old that's passed this down, and that is to illustrate the modern day dart of today, like we've got here, or my own dart, and then darts of 50, 60 and 70 years ago. People say, as the game changed, look at your dart. It's just a dart, and it's got a fancy stem where it comes out of the side. It doesn't go out the top anymore. That's not because my eyes are bad, it's because the manufacturers have come up with what I think is a brilliant idea, where the dart, the flight goes through the side. It's spring-loaded. It moves out of the way of the next dart coming into the board, and it still goes back to its own shape. Now we look at this. This is something that I'm particularly pleased of, and I know there's not many of these left around anywhere in the world. This is made by the same people, Unicorn, and this was made over 50 years ago. And this set of darts it's called a Silver Comet. And if we look at it, and the difference between mine and that, it's almost the same.
And that is 50 years old?
It's over 50 years old. Now we say, well, how come you've got this new Revolution stem? So we look at this, and someone cleverly designed years ago, you take the top off, and the actual flight comes out just same as a slick stick. They're more ingenious because you only have to buy half a flight, so you saved half the money anyway. It's great. And really, if you look at that, and that is going back 50, 60, 70 years, there's not a lot of difference between those 2 darts. And the performance thrown at the board wouldn't be all that much different either, except that mine is a thinner and it's a shorter barrel. And the most noticeable thing is it's about 3 grams heavier because it's made of an heavier metal. But it just shows that darts maybe has gone full circle. It's probably come right back round to where we started, with a precise piece of engineering which is back to the modern day dart.
John, so that's a really, truly amazing example of a dart that has, as you said, gone in a full circle, but we're talking about the average player, like myself, the average dart, which you've already described as being around about 24 grams, the medium of the range of a dart, which is if you're receiving a dart as a present, this would be a good range and an average, medium range to start off with. Then you'll come into your trial and error, which you've placed so much importance on. But you did mention a point earlier, which I'd like to pick you up on, and that was that you stated that a range of between 15 and I believe 50 grams is acceptable as a dart.
That's right. Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, is there anybody that throws a weight of dart as heavy as 50 grams with any kind of accuracy at all?
I wouldn't say there's anybody throws a dart 50 gram. Now, having said that, there's probably going to be 900 people contact me straight away saying that they do. But I don't know anybody who throws one at 50 gram that throws it successfully, very successfully. I know people that throw 12 gram darts, which when you open a window somewhere, the draft through the window actually takes the dart, wobbles across, which it does with my own, which incidentally are 21 gram. Mine's slightly lighter than the 24, but some people prefer them 23 and 25, so we do them in 3 ways. That's to allow for we think 25 is possibly the highest weight that this will go to at this present time. But with the other end of the scale, the very heavy end of the scale, we can relate quite successfully through a present international player who plays for Wales, a lad called Byron Wozencraft, who throws a 42 gram dart. Now, all I can do is say to you that we have a little clip of a film that we would like to show just to the people, just to illustrate how successfully can throw a 42 gram dart. It's the matches against Wales versus England, 1983, and Byron is playing at the present, then, world champion Keith Deller.
An outshot for Wozencraft.
England requires 60.
Looking at 20, double top. Double top. Double 10.
50.
Cheers from the crowd.
58.
Wozencraft 18, double top to go ahead. Double top. Double 10. It brings the roof down. Wozencraft goes in front, 2-1.
Well, as you said, John, we've seen an example there of a man, an international, Byron Wozencraft, actually throwing darts with a very, very great deal of accuracy with a 40-plus gram dart. But taking that clip of film as well, I mean, we're talking about darts. Darts is the theme of this particular moment. And I noticed there that Keith Deller's darts seem to be falling apart. They're wobbling all over the place. I mean, there again, that's another aspect, John. What's that about?
Well, it's another new thing that's come into darts, and it's called a spring-loaded dart. It's not really new, although it is. I mean, people have not obtained it as yet. But as you noticed, when Keith's dart hit the board, it looks as if the flight was loose. It wobbled around. But in actual fact, what it is, the part where the point goes into the barrel, the actual hole is bigger than the point, so the point wobbles from side to side. It's shaped like a pin, and it's got a little head inside here, and on top of the head is a spring that goes tight up to the stem. This makes it so the point can retract. So the theory is that when it hits a wire, it ricochets on the wire and then goes over and in. You have to see this through a very slow film to be able to understand how it actually works. But about 10 years ago, or around that time, I did stay in someone's house in Sweden called Kent Seagram, who actually designed that dart. He's the man that made it many, many years ago. And I threw a few darts with it, and quite honestly, I don't know whether people can remember when Keith played me in the World Championship, 1983, the Embassy World Championship, that he didn't lose any darts at all, and yet I lost something like 18. So everyone said, well, you should get some of those darts. But then we saw in the semi-final and the final, Keith lost 20 or 30 as well. So it's got things in its favour and things against. Personally, the very fact that it wobbles when it hits the board puts me off. If I was throwing, I'd think, is it the point or is the dart loose? And so I wouldn't throw again at it thinking I would knock the dart out. So I'd tend not to throw at it and throw somewhere else. It's a fine dart. Keith's done extremely well with it, so all we can say, it's a new development in the game. Maybe we'll progress past that, I don't know. The rules, incidentally, of darts had to be changed to allow that dart in, because the rules did say that a dart must have a fixed point to the barrel. That rule has now been changed because obviously there's other firms in America that make a bottle-head dart, which is a very similar thing where the point goes in and out without a spring. So that's another aspect of darts what we see as the game progresses. Everyone's trying to eliminate the wire on the dartboard, so there's nothing to it. That's the basic thing at the end of the day. The bigger the target, the less obstructions, the more you score.
But surely, John, a dart coming out is probably the biggest excuse for a dart player to lose a match. Obviously not to win a match, but to lose a match. Isn't that part and parcel of the game of darts, as you would expect?
Yes, I would, but if the darts are going to develop into things where we've got spring-loaded points and we're going to have these flights like I've got here that go in the side, and many, many other things that's going to help the game, little caps that can go on the top of the stem to stop the dart going into the top of it, then the manufacturers owe it to themselves to try and reduce the size of the wires on a dartboard. It's not for me to even say that they can do that, because I know there's been many, many experiments to try and reduce the thickness of the wire, to try and get it thinner so that there's less to it. But at the same time, it moves, and if the dart sticks in a 1 and bends to the left, and in theory it moves the wire over, you've actually hit a 20. But the wire's telling you it's in a 1. So they have to have it rigid, obviously, to separate the 1 from a 20, or a 6 from a 10. It's as simple as that, really.
Well, we've covered, really, the history of darts on one table, haven't we, really?
Well, we'd like to think
As
we
far
have.
as
We'd like to
darts
think we have.
manufacture.
That's right. There's many, many points that, finer points that we can't really go into fully, for the simple reason that, as I said before, we'd need a table 300 yard long to get them all on, to go through it. But I think we've covered the basic from a fella buying his set of darts, or a lady, ladies play darts, in a local shop, taking them home and playing on the board. We've covered that. We're almost to the actual part where you throw the dart.
So our champion, our projected champion, is just a little bit further along the road to his championship, shall we say, by choosing the right dart. It is obviously the tool of the trade, and it's a very, very important one.
It's one that he may not get right for 10 years. I'm still trying. I've been playing 17 years. Thousands of titles and trophies and competitions lost and won behind me. But to quote Jack Charlton when he retired from England, he said he played over 80 times for England, yet he was still learning how to play the game when he finished. I think that's what it's all about. You try and improve all the time. Keep trying to improve, get better. Maybe it'll work. So, as I said before, sometimes you'll make the wrong decision. You'll find out the dart that you threw well with last night, all of a sudden you can't do it. That's you, that's not the dart.
That's right.
If you get a set you like, stick to it and improve on your own throw. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. We've got one more item on our table, John, that I'd like to highlight. And of course, this is a very, very decorative. It looks a little bit like a lady's purse, dare I say, John. Can we just see what the champion dart player actually carries around with him in his dart case?
Well, I don't think he carries one of these, to be quite honest. I'm fortunate by going to America and a lot of other places where people want to give you little mementos to bring home. So I personally am very lucky that I pick a very nice dart case up, something that is made of leather. It was made by an American, and as you can see, it's got almost everything in. The darts go into the top, the flights go into the side, there's a little sharpening stone. Always carry a sharpening stone, every dart player. It's no good having a blunt point because it's bounced off a wire, hit the floor, squared the end of the dart off, and you're running around trying to find a stone to sharpen it. These cost about 5p. You buy your own. You make sure you've got one. You've always got one. A dart player that hasn't got one, then he doesn't deserve to be winning. In here you've got your spare stems. It all folds neatly into a pocket or wherever. The thing is, never leave them around because people are likely to walk away with it because they look so good.
Yeah.
Sometimes a 20p wallet is the best thing to have a £20 set of darts in because it's the wallet they take, unfortunately, and not the darts.
Always when playing competitions, John, spare set of flights, spare set of canes, just in case of emergencies?
Well, always. They do break. They're not made to last forever because they're made to move out of the way, as I've shown. And flights with deep grooves on darts, as I've said before, can rub the end, and we're talking a minimum, if it costs 50p a week, that's again back to the cost of what we've got so far. We've got a dartboard at £16, we've got a set of darts, anything around £10 minimum. We've got a couple of spare sets of flights, so we're looking at £35 and we're on our way. And we can play for years with that.
As you say, indeed. Well, I am on my way. I've now been told how to set up a dartboard. I know what distance I've got to throw from. I've got a better insight into what kind of darts I should go for. Does that now make me a potential champion, or have I now got to learn to throw them?
I think now you're on your way. Now you need, obviously, to know the stance, the grip, where we stand behind that hockey that we've talked about earlier, how to line up to the dartboard. I'm taking in many, many little things, and the only way we can really do that is we'll go across to the board and illustrate a few what I think the grip and stance should be.
Let's do it exactly then.
Well, Phil, we've got the dartboard in the right place, we've got the throw, we know they're all correct. We've got to